a lot of people start out when they have this personality profile that we probably share, right? Which is this sort of, they used to call it type A, but this driven personality profile. And oftentimes I find that leads to people who need to be and own everything, right? This is my kingdom and I want to control everything that happens in the kingdom. Chances are you're not the best person to control everything that happens in your kingdom. There's probably people that do it a little better than you do, right? Various aspects of the business. And so success is going to come when you fill in all those gaps around you and you start to realize where the real gaps are and you find the best people to follow. Yeah, I think one of the keys to making that happen, candidly, is openness, right?
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today, we're going to talk about attracting high-performing people. When you think about your business, do you think you're alone? Do you feel like you can scale to where you want to be without attracting more people? Probably not. If you think about, what's available out there, and do you have the systems, and do you have the brand to actually attract the talented people to grow? I hope you do. In case you don't, today we're going to unpack what this company has done. Our special guest is Phil Ogilby. He is the founder of Stack Construction Technologies. They do estimating, and they actually can estimate projects in the field with iPads. Really interesting stuff. Phil's got 170 employees. He's been on the Inc. list, and we talked about what does it take to attract high-performing employees. And so you'll feel his optimism for it, which is one of the things that it takes. But you'll also feel, some other things that are coming up that you can actually see if you have what it takes to attract high-performing people. I'm not saying this is everything, but it's a good start for you to understand what does it take to attract high-performing people to your business. My name is Gene Hammett. I'm an executive coach. We work with growing companies that are really looking to create predictable success, whether that be in sales or through leadership. One of the things that we're known for is helping managers become leaders and really helping you take your business to the next level. We work primarily with Inc. 5000 companies. Doesn't mean you have to be on the list, but that's what we do. And if you're curious about what we can do for you, you can reach out to me at gene@genehammett.com. But what I really want to invite you to is a special, unique situation, which is our virtual conversation. We have guests that have been on the show. We have previous experts that have been on here or clients. These are people that are in the know, in the trenches, and we get to have a conversation. The next one is in August, and it will be all about culture. I think it's named Culture is Everything. And so if you're curious about what it takes and what these other people have to do, you can bring your questions, you can add some insights, but you can join us at coreelevation.com/virtual conversations. And now here is the interview with Phil. Phil, how are you?
Good, Gene. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. We're going to have a great interview. We're going to talk about how to attract high-performing people to your companies. You have Stack Corporation or Stack Construction Technologies. I'm sorry. Tell us a little bit about your company.
So thanks for the opportunity. First of all, I'm pleased to be here. So what we do is we make estimating software for building contractors, mostly commercial building contractors. We have some residential customers, but mostly commercial. And they use it for what's called takeoffs, which is measuring digital blueprints on their computer screen and determining quantities of materials. They also use it for estimating. So they take that list of materials they've just created directly from the drawings digitally in their browser, and pretty soon they got a bill of materials, and they've got labor, and they've got quantities, and they've got costs associated with it. So take it all the way to the estimate. We also have a solution now we acquired several years ago called Smart Use, which is an iPad solution. So not only can they take the project from the takeoff and the estimating stage all the way through, to the project in the field. So it's a mobile solution. We have thousands of customers. We have currently about 170 employees between here and Canada, and it's been a success story.
Fantastic. Since it is technology and you didn't mention AI, is AI playing a role as the company continues to grow and serve?
Yeah, for sure. It's not only is it sort of a hot button and a buzzword, right? It's real, and we've got some AI built into our solution. We partnered with a couple of different companies actually, and they can automate much of the takeoff process, the measuring of the drawing itself digitally. None of it's perfect, of course, but we call it an accelerator, really, right? Because you just kind of plug it in and say, okay, measure this for me, and the software knows what you want to measure, and basically it does its best. And so and then we give them the tools to quickly and modify and edit what they've done. But it's quite popular. It's really taken off. I'll admit to that. I was a little bit, skeptical in the beginning. If it's not perfect, is it going to sell? But people, and again, I think pitching it the right way and setting it up for the prospect and the customer, right, is half the battle. So we just pitch it as sort of a co-pilot, and that's what it does, and then people love it. So yeah, it's over time, we've got a lot more AI stuff coming, so it's going to continue to be a big part of the business going forward for sure.
That's what I was going to add in there. I mean, everyone that's able to get a little, foundation understanding and how these tools work, and sometimes they don't work and they got to be cleaned up. 3 years from now, it's going to be a different world.
Oh, I know.
Because we're leveraging these things. The companies that don't leverage the AI, I feel like are going to be left behind.
Well, and we have we have a unique solution. So to the extent we compete with others, much of the market still is doing it on our desktop application, right? Which is great if for the 300 projects you're working on, this year, and they're all on your computer or all on your mainframe in the office, whatever, that's fine. But we built a cloud solution, so we literally have millions of documents we can train the AI tools on. So it gives us a real advantage, and ultimately that comes back to benefit to the customer, right?
Perfect, Phil. We got here because you've grown a company, you've grown other companies as well, but this company, over 170 employees. Apparently people are important still to business. It's not just based on technology and AI. You still got people making decisions and running things and strategizing and leading other people. So what is the secret, you feel like, for your company to attract high performing people?
That's a great question. And candidly, if you and I were sitting at a bar and you were having a beer and I was having an iced tea, because I gave up drinking a few years ago, we'd be having this conversation. I'd say one of my keys to success, right? One of the reasons I'm able to fly my own airplane back and forth to Florida and live in a beautiful place on the ocean is because I've been able to attract high quality people to the organization and to my cause, right? So at the end of the day, it's funny, even at the board level, my board members know that the thing about Phil is he doesn't need to be king. He just wants to be successful, right? At the end of the day. And so a lot of people start out when they have this personality profile that we probably share, right? Which is this sort of, they used to call it type A, but this driven personality profile. And oftentimes I find that leads to people who need to be and own everything, right? This is my kingdom and I want to control everything that happens in the kingdom. Chances are you're not the best person to control everything that happens in your kingdom. There's probably people that do it a little better than you do, right? Various aspects of the business. And so success is going to come when you fill in all those gaps around you and you start to realize where the real gaps are and you find the best people to follow. I think one of the keys to making that happen, candidly, is openness, right? So we talk about it every month. Our core values here, number one is openness, right? And we do an all hands meeting every month with all of our employees. We lay out at the beginning of the year our plan for the business, each department, what your goals and targets are. Then we bring that forward and show it to them next month. This is what you want to do next month. And then we recap on what we finished with, right? What were the actual results? So openness is important. Everybody knows where we're going, why we're going there, what we're trying to do. In addition to that, then it's ownership, right? And so we talk about this every month as well, which is you need to own your role, right? We all need to own our role, and there's a lot to elaborate on ownership. But then ultimately it's optimism too. So it's those three things, right? From our perspective. And when you bring that together as an individual, I feel like I personify a lot of that. People want to follow.
Phil's been talking about ownership, and I've been talking about this on stages around the world. And I want to share with you a couple of things that I've seen that really creates a feeling of ownership. Now, there's 6 of these, but I'm not going to go through all of them today. But we already talked about transparency or openness. But what I want to add into that is you want to make sure you have a mission that people are attracted to. Talented people are attracted to a mission that aligns with their own self-values. You also want to empower people the right way. If you don't empower them to make decisions, if you don't empower them to define strategies and pick up the pieces when things fall apart, then you're going to miss out on the great people out there. Now, there's some other elements that I could share with you because I could talk about this all day long. If you're curious what they are, just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com, and happy to drop you a presentation where I made a full view of all 6 elements of the elements of ownership that drive that feeling of ownership. Back to Phil. I want to look at these differently than what I think most people are suggesting I look at it or thinking I might take the path of. I could talk about why openness and ownership, and what was the third one you said?
Optimism.
Optimism drives the company, but I don't want to look at it from that perspective. I want to take a little bit unique perspective with you. You're
Okay.
attracting high highly talented people in different areas of the company, different skills, different levels of experience. Let's take these one by one. Why is openness something that people are attracted to, in your opinion?
When you see it play out in real time with human beings, it's an enormously powerful thing. We used to have, we live in Florida now, but we had a horse farm here in Ohio. We had about a 40-acre horse farm. And it was interesting. We employed these young people that would come in, generally friends of, children of friends of ours, to clean stalls and do things like that. And it was funny watching it because my wife and I sort of employed the same tactics there. And then she was really good about sort of laying out why we do things. Why is it important to do this? It's important for the horse to do this and that and the other thing. And pretty soon you have people following. So it's very, very important for people to understand. I think it's just human nature to a degree. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What's the vision? Why is this important? I think it's very critical stuff.
I'm not going to go into this too much, but one of the things I've done through this podcast is have 600-700 people just like you that are founders, CEOs of fast growing companies, and I've heard them talk about ownership so much. And so I tried to formulate, it's engineering me, forgive me, but what really makes up that feeling of ownership across this? And I know we're going to talk about that second, but transparency is a different way to say openness.
Right? It is
sharing,
sure.
making them an insider to what's going on, helping them, like you said, Phil, and maybe I'm projecting a little bit. You said, I don't need to be the king. A lot of founders are stuck in making their own decisions. They want,
yes.
they're in love with their own ideas.
Yeah.
Maybe they're great. But if you build a company built on your own ideas and no one else has a voice and they don't feel like they can speak up, and all you're surrounded by is people that are just say yes to your ideas, it's not going to be quite the company that you could have if you have that sense of openness that you're describing.
That's exactly right. I mean, I couldn't have probably said it any better than you said, but that I feel that way. I believe that. It's not a feeling. I believe it. I see it in practice every day. Yeah.
All right. So let's take it ownership a little bit. Attracting high performing people. Why is ownership so attractive to them?
Most of our employees, like the workforce today, but we're in the technology business. Most of our employees, I would say, are between 25 and 45 years old, right? Certainly we have people older and we have people younger, but 25 to 45. So you have people in sort of the middle of their life. And to me, it's really important. I recommend a book. In fact, we suggest we'll buy the book for you, right? Just expense it. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Jocko was a SEAL team leader, and it's just a remarkable book, but it really puts a new perspective on ownership. And ownership, when you peel back the onion on what ownership really means, it comes down to self-discipline at the end of the day, right? And it's it's critical for not just leaders, but everybody in the organization to really own their role. And so you got to start with transparency up front, right? So they know where they're going and they know how to measure their success whether they're on track or not. But then you need to embrace this concept of ownership. And candidly, I feel like we have a tremendous culture here at Stack. To be honest, I want to knock on wood. Hopefully that doesn't change anytime soon. But people really want to work here. We don't have great people walking out the door and saying, I'll see you later. Thanks for your time. People like working here, and I think a big part of that is, when it comes down to ownership, when you find people that just can't find their way to truly embrace ownership of whatever their role is, and then we can't find a better spot that fits their skill set and their desire, then we part ways, right? We let them go. And it's what always surprises me about that is we try and prepare for it, and this is a personnel change, and how are we going to communicate the message and all this. But I'm always struck by the people that are still here that work next to that person that come back to us and say, boy, you guys did the right thing. So you want to be, once you embrace the ownership, you want to be surrounded by others who embrace the ownership as well. So to me, it's another one of those things that really attracts, I think, high quality people.
Well, we've been talking about a lot of different things, and you talked about Jocko's book, which is a great book. There's a story in there I just absolutely love. I was going to tell you that, but I'm going to remind you that we've got a book that just came out called How to Have Tough Conversations. If you've got people in your organization, you need this book, because people sometimes get out of alignment. Sometimes they don't perform the way you want them to. Sometimes there's conflict that has to be addressed. And if you or someone on your team is experiencing that, then you want this book. It is a practical guide with a framework and phases that really guide you through the process. It is really good. So go ahead and buy it at Amazon. You can get the print, you can get the digital, you can get Audible, all now. Just go to howtohavetoughconversations.com and find out more. I agree with you. nothing will be more of a repellent to a high performer than feeling like they're coming into something where they're going to be controlled or they're going to
Yeah,
be put into a box and they're going to be, and I've been that employee. I was like, what about these ideas? And they're like, we don't need your ideas here. We need your work.
right. Yeah,
And
exactly.
I didn't work out very long in those roles because I felt like I could, be a better for my own, clients and entrepreneur and being a coach as I became a coach. All right. The third one you mentioned was optimism.
Yes.
I'm just curious, what do you've got to say about why is optimism such a factor that high performers are attracted to working with you guys?
Great question. You and I talked off air right before we started. I mean, my journey, this is my second major sort of startup. I did one during the dot-com boom. It made a number of mistakes. We sold it for almost $100 million and I got butkus, right, out of the deal personally. And at the end of the day, I found myself 48 years old and having to kind of start over, right? And that's what Stack is, right? We've built this into what it is today. This is really kind of my second or third chance deal, right? But you live and learn from your mistakes. But optimism has to drive you. And it's really, to me, again, these things are I feel like candidly, a lot of this is sort of inherent in me personally. And that's why it's kind of so easy to sort of spread the gospel every month when I stand up and talk to our team. But at the end of the day, I wouldn't be here without optimism. I'd be selling shoes somewhere or doing who knows what, right? The longer you live, the more you realize the importance of optimism. When you don't lose until you quit at the end of the day, right? And so you just get up, stand up, dust yourself off, fix the mistakes, try not to do the stupid things you did last time. But it really applies to every avenue of life and not just in business. And so, like, frankly, in our monthly talks, I often bring it back to something personal because optimism is so important to human beings in general, for their well-being and their health, in my opinion, not only as a driver of success for business, but
Going with the same theme we had before, the easiest way to repel someone who's a high performer is to be a pessimist
yeah,
and to have a downward look on that, because they'll sense that inside the interviews that you have, and they just won't give you that second chance because there's many other opportunities out there. So, for you guys, just, summarizing this, attracting high performing people could be a lot of different things, but for you, as you've looked at it and kind of analyzed it, it's the openness, it's the ownership, and it's the optimism that really make you
yeah,
guys. Phil, I want to ask you a question about leadership.
yeah.
You've grown this company to a very, incredible place. You've got a great team. You're going to continue to grow and leverage new technologies as you grow. What are the leadership principles that guide you as a leader?
It's important to give people responsibility. We talked about ownership, right? And it's important to give people responsibility. Now we're talking about leadership roles specifically. It's important that they have that responsibility, but it's also important to give them the authority, right? Most people don't want to be told specifically what to do. What I want to do, what I've tried to do from the beginning, is every day I'll sit down. So I don't know, I mentioned the size and the number of employees. We have, very nice revenue today. Even at our size, we're growing 30% a year, 30% a year. The business is doing very well. But every day I sit at my desk and I try and think about, how do I build the business for this next level, right? So this is where we are today. It's not enough to have the business we have today. We have that. What we're trying to do is to go here, right? And up here, it might take a lot of different sort of people to get us there, right? And so sometimes the people that helped you find 5 million in revenue and helped you find 10 million in revenue don't fit when you get to 15 or 20 or 25 or 30, right? So it's oftentimes a different person. We try hard. We provide training. We pay for training. We send people to leadership. We hire consultants. We invest a lot in our leaders because we want them to grow with us. Some of my best leaders have been with me all along. But at the end of the day, that's very, very important stuff, is to keep kind of nurturing the leadership. But they have to have the responsibility, but they really have to have the authority to make it happen as well. And we try and operate in an environment that lets that happen, right? We talked about it before. From an openness standpoint, we let everybody know. We make it very clear what our goals are as a business. And that goes right down to the department, that goes down to each individual role. So they have the targets in front of them. They have the reasoning behind those targets. We want them to have a voice. How do we best get to those targets? And we give them the responsibility to make that happen. And when you do that and you have the right people in the right seats, it's like magic. It's just like magic.
Well, wrapping up today, Phil, Is there anything we left out in this conversation about attracting high-performing people?
I'm not. That's a great question. I'm not sure. It's something that should be very critical to every entrepreneur out there trying to build a business, right? You want to build a business that'll run without you, first of
Yeah.
all, and you need to start with that mindset from the beginning. If your goal is to sell the business down the road, nobody wants to buy a business that requires, Phil to be there or Gene to be there every single day, right? And maybe
Yeah.
Gene wants to go play golf at some point, right? So you want to build a business that'll run without you, and that requires a high performing team. So it's been my goal from the beginning. It should be your goal as an entrepreneur if that's what you're doing, and the rewards are remarkable. But you have to be solid enough in your confidence to to be willing to let go of the reins a little bit and let smart people make smart decisions.
I'm interpreting for you, Phil. You have to grow. You have to evolve. The
That's
leader
right.
that you were 20 years ago
Yeah,
isn't the same person that you are today. And
that's
it's
100%.
real easy to look over 20 years, but I think even in a year to year, we should be striving to grow and evolve, think differently, see things differently, especially for creating that business that runs without you, because it takes that kind of approach to get there. I've helped a lot of companies do it. And I really appreciate you being here, being a guest on the show. Phil, thanks for talking to us about attracting high performing people.
Good deal. Thanks. I enjoyed it.
Wow, what a great interview. I love everything. I love the fact that he's, breaking it down into what attracts high performing people, because that's really important. You may not be able to, replicate the strategies and opportunities, but you can replicate the things that he had talked about, right? The openness, the ownership, and the optimism. But you also want to make sure that you're, developing your people, because that will help them. If we can help you in any way, make sure you let me know. My name is Gene Hammett. Happy to help you serve your audience. Now, when you think of leadership and you think of growth think Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.